Hello everyone, thank you for attending the session today. I'm pleased to be here to talk about how we built and accelerated a learning culture at Northwestern University, and hopefully have a chance for you to think about how you might do the same at your organizations. A little bit about me. My name is Samir Desai. I'm the Executive Director for Learning and Organization Development at Northwestern University. That means I get to be responsible for building the skills and capabilities of our staff and faculty who support our students in the university's mission of education and research. I like to think it's the best job at the university, but to be honest, some people don't quite know what that job means. If you ask my wife, who's an engineer, she'll say it's the fluffy stuff. If you ask my kids, they'll say, you know, Dad, you make PowerPoint slides and attend meetings all day, which is probably pretty much true. So I want to get to you to know a little bit more about me and who I am, because that's really what influences the things I'm going to talk about here today, my professional background as well as my personal one. I'm married, I have 3 kids. As you can see here, I'm passionate about my Indian culture and heritage. Love to dance, all kinds of dancing, but especially Indian cultural dancing, of which me and my wife and family are involved. Talk a little bit about that later. And you can see here that I also attend other kinds of conferences. This one where I was Gambit at Comic-Con. And as much as I'd like that to be my hair, no, that's not my hair in real life. So in terms of where I've been and where I'm at now, I'm at Northwestern University today, but my career actually started out before this in technology and technology consulting. I was with a consulting company for almost 25 years working in industry, working at the intersection of technology, humans, people, and design, and really started in technology-enabled learning and then moved into leadership development, professional development, performance management. And I left Accenture after many years there as the managing director of talent development, responsible for building the skills and capabilities of 300,000 people globally. So it's a wonderful role, but what I'm excited about coming to Northwestern University a couple years ago is the mission-driven aspect of the university. We're made up of 12 schools across 3 primary locations and multiple satellite locations, over 20,000 undergraduate and graduate students, almost 3,500 faculty members, and 7,000 staff who support our faculty and students in achieving our mission. And I joined the university, you know, one, because it's a well-renowned research university where we can really make a difference, but more so because when I joined, leadership really talked about the fact that as highly as we were ranked, we want to be ranked higher, not because the rankings matter, but because what it means to be ranked higher, the things we would have to do, and what we need to do with our staff to be able to elevate the level of leadership at the university to accomplish our ambitious goals and become change leaders. And that really attracted me to the university. I was very excited to join. So when I joined, I thought, this is great, right? Here we are at a learning organization, and I'm here in the learning field. What could be better? Take advantage of the great work going on in the classrooms and being able to leverage those environments, digital learning and MOOCs, and being able to leverage that internally for our staff, community, vibrant community on campus that we can tap into to create communities and exchange ideas. Well, the reality was that it wasn't quite that way. As much as the university is mission-driven and the focus is learning and research, a lot of the focus, and rightly so, is our students, the student experience and the outcomes for them. And of course, it's about our faculty, the faculty that teach, the faculty that do research, the faculty that attract grad students and attract research dollars. And there wasn't a lot of leadership support for our staff population, even though our staff, we have twice as many staff as our faculty at the university to support our students. There wasn't a lot of investment in terms of training and development and performance development for our staff members. Not a lot of infrastructure in place. There's no learning management system or any kind of learning system in place. There's multiple websites, no performance system in place. There's a performance management process that was fairly complex, 7 ratings. People use decimal points and Word 2003 to capture goals. And so the reality was there was a lot of work to do. The exciting thing was there was a real willingness and a support to do that work. But it really took thinking about this in a new way. We needed a new formula, if you will, to build. What we needed to do is build a learning culture. And so while Northwestern University is a wonderful learning institution, we hadn't really institutionalized learning for our own people, and that was the opportunity. So we thought about building a learning culture. the first thing I did, as anyone in a good research university would do, was to do research and do good, empirical-based research by Googling. So went out to Google and said, what is a learning culture, right? What is a learning culture? Well, learning is pretty straightforward. The acquisition of knowledge or skills through experience, study, being taught. Okay. Culture, first definition, the cultivation of bacteria. That's probably not the definition we're looking for, right? Yeah. But then if you scroll down a little bit, the attitudes and behavior characteristics of a particular social group. So that's really what we're up to, of really changing the attitudes and behaviors of our population to be focused on acquiring knowledge and skills through these different means. And to create that in a way that not only do we have the infrastructure and the programs that support it, but people had the motivation and curiosity to pursue it. So as we went about setting up this and figuring out what the learning culture should be, the next thing on the list was, as we continued to do the research, was the 70-20-10 model, right? We're all familiar with the 70-20-10 model. It's something that I think comes when we get our, become a learning leader. It's part of our toolkit, right, if you will, and so much of our strategies are driven this way. Well, as I started to look at it and said, where are we going to focus our efforts? And 70% of our efforts that go through on the job and the things we need to do to enable on the job learning, performance support, and team-based learning. Well, that required infrastructure to be there, support to be there, a strong manager population to actually do this work on the ground, and we just didn't have that in place yet. And then I started to really question this model. What is this? And I looked into it. And it turns out, I don't know how many of you know this, but this model was, it's not really deeply research-based. It was done in the mid-90s, supposedly, doing a survey of 50 individuals in one company, executives, to say, how did you learn? And came up with this model. And now we use this to drive our learning strategy. I'm not so sure that's the right answer. And the reality is that we need all of these things. Sure, of course, most of the learning happens in the job, but we need training programs and learning programs so people get immersed in and learn skills and bring people together. We need social learning, coaching, and mentoring so people can learn from others. We need all these components, and when we use the different components differs based upon where we are in the organization's life cycle, where we are in the individual life cycle, what someone's preference is for learning, or what their mode of learning might be in that moment. And so all these components became important. And in fact, if you think about it, on-the-job learning is going to happen whether we as learning professionals are there or not. People have been doing it before, they'll be doing it in the future. Of course, we can help do it better. Things like mentoring and coaching are going to happen if you've got good leaders and managers in place. I'm sure we can help make it better. But what won't happen most likely is actual learning programs and building experts and bringing people together to learn. And so we started looking at this and say we need to look at all of this holistically. And I had to figure out what is this formula then, this new formula for building this learning culture. And looked at a model called the I-4 model, sufficiently mathematical considering it's at a research university, Northwestern University. And the first I is for intention. Is there a purpose? Is there a direction for where we're going? The second I is involvement. Do we have the right stakeholders involved? Is there buy-in to what we want to do and leadership support? The third one is investment. Is there a model for investment and continued appetite for investing in programs and architectures and technology? And finally, there's infrastructure. Are there the right tools and processes and technology in place to be able to do this at scale across the environment? All leading to a culture of leadership, performance, and engagement. So setting apart this mission, the first was around intention. And is there an alignment to our overall strategy, right? And so all of you as learning professionals will be looking and saying, I'm sure you look and say, what is my learning strategy? How does it align to the business strategy? To be able to look at that and say, whatever type of industry you're in, whether it's retail or manufacturing, is your learning strategy, the skills you're looking to build, the people you're looking to build, does it align to the outcomes that you're looking to achieve as a business? And at Northwestern, we had a we will strategy focused on our growth, not necessarily of size, but of agenda and of our research mission. And we had a connect pillar that we were able to tap into, which was about growing and building community. And it resulted in learning, performing, and leading at Northwestern. For our people to learn the skills necessary to be successful, perform at their best for themselves and the university, and lead others to do the same. And this really provided the grounding and the mechanism and the framework to mobilize the community around one common mission. Second was about involvement. As I said, involvement and the focus was a lot on our faculty and other types of investments. And while there was a good level of involvement, it wasn't necessarily cohesive and consistent across the organization. And so we mobilized a learning council and really focused the learning council to come together on this mission and our priorities and get them enrolled in achieving the common priorities together. That was under HR Leadership Council that looked at overall talent at the university. And from the Learning Council, we created working groups made up of those members, sometimes the ones that might be the naysayers or the ones that might look at other solutions, and brought them to the table to help co-create some of the solutions for us. So that when we went back to implement them, they were already bought in because they're part of who created the solution in the first place. Third is about investment. And we took a look and said, where do we compare with the overall benchmark against other organizations? And where we landed was a little lower than even the mid-size or the mid-level organizations. So we weren't where we needed to be to attract and retain the best talent if we were going to focus on this part of the way that we rewarded our people. But that didn't quite go all the way to solve this for us. What we really need to look at is how does this compare to overall investment? And when you take a look at this, you take a look at healthcare as part of payroll, 27% of payroll as a way in which we make sure people are healthy when they come to work. Or 17% spent on infrastructure and making sure people have the right tools when they come to work. And what we're asking for is just a percentage of payroll to make sure people have the right skills to be successful. We weren't even spending that much. And when we started looking at this, it became clear and evident that why wouldn't we do that? And then finally, the infrastructure. We didn't have a learning management system in place, or what I like to call a digital infrastructure, digital learning infrastructure. And so we put a digital learning system in place, partnering with Saba Cloud, that allowed us to understand and track who was taking what before we didn't know that, to allow us to scale across our campuses to our full population, and ultimately to be able to serve up more and more digital learning so people can learn point of lead along with registering for classroom-based or workshop-based training. And so for the first time, we had a system in place where everyone could come to understand what learning opportunities were available to them and complete them. And you see here the types of usage we had in a population of 10,000 people, and this included some graduate students as well. We've gotten much of our population have gone to this system in just 2 short years to go take training of one kind or another to help them be successful. All right, so we started looking at all of this, and we said, okay, now we need to do something with this and actually build up our capabilities. So the first focus area was leadership development. And the challenge was developing the capability, developing the skills in a curriculum to build these skills, the capacity, making sure we focus at all levels and to reach a broad audience across all of our schools and units, and to institutionalize it, really remove some of the barriers where we were charging for training and come up with a central funding model. We came up with a model of lead yourself, lead others, lead the organization. And then we really did a lot of human-centered design, created focus groups for our managers, got input from our leaders to be able to understand what types of skills we need to build. And the model that we came up with is purpose, people, and performance, all built on the foundation of our values at the university. Purpose, my own personal purpose and mission, as well as the vision for the team or for the project. Focusing on helping our people achieve the outcomes for today, but also developing them for the future. And performance, of course, getting things done, but also being stewards for the future. And these are the framework in which then we build programs to deliver to our population. Now what's interesting is that with a small team and relatively focused infrastructure and environment, we really need to leverage lots of strategic partnerships, both internally and externally at Northwestern. I'm sure all of you do this type of thing as well. And what was really interesting is that much of these were workshops or training programs. We brought people together for a day, 2 days, 3 days, 4 days. And it revived in me the importance of that. While we're looking at just-in-time learning and bite-sized learning and 10-minute snippets and videos, the importance of bringing people together. We talked about the threshold of learning where you go and you need that, a few hours, if not a day, to get past your work environment so that you can free yourself up to learn new things and reflect. Bringing people together across the community. We had a manager program recently where an individual said, this is the only environment, this is the only kind of thing where I get together with my peers across the university. Learning from experts. I had someone stop me and say, I went to one of your programs. I go, yeah, Joseph, I remember. He said, 168, 168. I said, what is 168? He goes, remember 168? I go, yeah, that's right. There was a course where the faculty member talked about this 168 hours in a week. Everyone has 168 hours. Nobody has more or less. It's how you use the 168 hours that matter. He goes, I use that every week to think about what I'm going to focus on aligned to my priorities and values. These are all the types of value that we get from bringing people together. And it's those moments, the learning moments, that can make a big difference in people's careers. Next was performance management. We really focused then on building the right leaders, and we're in that process still. We're rolling out the curriculum, but looking at reinventing a performance management process, as I'm sure many of you in your companies are looking at or have done already or in the process of doing. Now, we didn't necessarily believe that we were getting rid of ratings. We're not there yet for our environment, because that requires a fairly sophisticated set of managers who can communicate expectations and give feedback without a rubric like that in place. So we do have a rating scale, but a greatly simplified one. But what really focuses on the goal setting, enhancing performance, aligning with a growth mindset, and really looking at how do we help people build curiosity and willingness to learn, even if they've been in a role for many, many years. And while we did a lot to focus on enhancing performance, the conversations, bringing those to life, what was interesting is that the goals is what one of the challenging thing was. And we're utilizing a model called the Simple Goal Framework, allowing our people to have simple goals that are impactful and meaningful, right? Impactful to the organization, meaningful to themselves. And our people had a tendency to want to write down all the things they were going to do, right? What am I going to do? What are my responsibilities? All the things I'm going to get done. But what we really wanted people to think about, what are those 2 to 4 impactful goals that are going to make a real difference in the next year in this project? And this concept of 6-word goals, it kind of comes from the 6-word story. If anyone has heard, Ernest Hemingway's story about this, what he felt was his best short story was pair of baby shoes never worn. And what he called, a very impactful story in just 6 words. Well, we can set goals this way. So for example, what we feel is our goal in leadership develop is building great leaders here and beyond. Right? It says a lot. I asked my son, who's in senior year, getting ready for college, and asked to challenge him with this. What's your 6-word goal here? What's your 6-word goal? And he kind of talked to me about it after he got past, I don't have time for this, and said, going to college, making a difference. It doesn't take a lot to think about what really is impactful and meaningful, and then making it happen. And then as we set up the performance management process, a lot of this was obviously the infrastructure, so we brought it online. Again, partnering with Saba so that we have learning and performance in one place where they can set their goals, document their accomplishments throughout the year, as well as get feedback from the supervisor and rating at the end. But it was more than that. It was about making sure we're clear on the roles and responsibilities and building a culture, starting to build a culture of it's both the individual and their supervisor who are jointly accountable for their performance. Both have a role to play in that. And we really leverage a lot of online tools and resources to help make that happen. And then it was about reflection and where am I at and where do I want to be? And this model here of what we do really well, what we want to do, and the opportunities that are out there, that when the intersection of that happens, that's the sweet spot, right? That's where we love coming to work every day and doing what we do. It's based on a model from the book Good to Great, the Hedgehog model, if you're familiar with that, but it applies to individuals as well. And a lot of times we think, gosh, I've got these interests and this passion, I need to go find that opportunity. Well, sometimes it's about thinking about how to bring that opportunity to your passion. And I had a supervisor for many years who was the head of learning where I was at, and a great mentor to me over the years, really challenged me. And about midway through my career, I had a crisis, maybe one of my crises, I guess, which is that, I really want to be a teacher. Really want to be a teacher, Don, but with my lifestyle and, where I'm at in my career, I don't think I can make that happen. And he kind of looked at me and said, okay, why don't you be a teacher? I said, I just told you. I want to, but I can't. He goes, no, why don't you be a teacher here? And thought about it, and he was right. I led a team. I was in an environment, a learning environment, where we were doing new and innovative things. We had an opportunity to learn and to teach new things. And I brought that starting then. I still bring it to work every day, which is I have an opportunity to teach every day and learn and bring my passion to the opportunity in my job. And then we took a look at engagements. We had leadership, building leadership, performance, building performance on the ground with our supervisors or individuals to unleash their potential. But how do we engage individuals? How do we really get them excited about and motivated for what they need to do? And then, as we all know, engaging people isn't about what we want, it's about what they want. It's about meeting their needs, right? So how do we do that? One of the things I shared with you earlier was that I'm really passionate about my culture and dancing, and one of the things along with actually doing the dancing is that I coach it and teach it to kids, typically around high school age kids. And as I got involved with it, I really had an interest in getting boys involved in it, because typically it's more typical that girls get involved with dancing, and I really want to get boys involved in it because I thought it was really important for their development and it's fun. And I got all these guys together and said, okay, this is great, right? You're going to learn how to dance, and you're going to do, be able to learn about our culture and music and dress. And they all just kind of looked at me like they didn't want to be there. And then I thought about it, and it was thinking and said, you know what? And there's girls in the dance that you'll get to meet. And they were like, okay, we'll give this a try. And so really tapping into what interests them allowed us to get them involved. And my son got involved. He'd been involved for 10 years now as he goes off into college here soon. And so as he's talked about this, how do we bring this to a business environment, to our institution? We really need to understand what motivated our people. And while there's many different ways, we're obviously doing that on the ground, we hadn't done that institution-wide. And so many of you may have an engagement survey that you do, maybe some of you are moving to more of a social model of feedback, but we really need to understand what was happening across the organization. And so we took a look at, and we're partnering with a vendor, Aon Hewitt, to run an engagement survey. And so there'll be a lot more to this in the coming months as we learn more. But really the model of say, stay, strive. Do I say great things? Do I strive? Do I want to stay there, and do I strive to go above and beyond? And what are the things that drive that? And based upon that, we can take action to achieve the outcomes. So as you take a look at this overall story and where we're at, the old adage here, right? The CFO says, well, what happens if we spend all this money investing in our people and they leave? And the CEO says, well, what if we don't invest in them and they stay? And that's really what it's about. And maybe there's just one more I here, maybe just a little bit or a little bit more than a little bit of inspiration to really bring leadership, performance, engagement, life in our organizations. And so I'll leave you with one more story, the starfish story. Some of you might have heard. Two people are walking along the beach, and all these starfish have been washed on shore from a storm, hundreds of them, maybe thousands. And one of the persons is taking a starfish and throwing the water. And the other one says, what difference is that really going to make? Look at all these starfish out there. And the first person says, well, it really made a difference to that one. Right? Bit of a tearjerker, I know, but it's true, right? So as we think about scalability and all the things we want to do with learning and the infrastructure and making things work across our organization, let's not forget why we do what we do, which is to make a difference for every individual that we do this for. Thank you very much.